know, did this get people thinking, are they preparing a drone show for Disneyland? Friends, over the past week, you yourself probably caught some of the buzz going around the Disney community when folks saw Disney testing drones out at the Disney Ranch. And as great as these drones look, and they look fantastic, the design of Disneyland makes this dream harder than what it sounds. Let me take you for a lap around Disneyland and show you what's possible and what's not. Brickey here. If you enjoy looking deep into the design of the park, do me and do you a favor. Subscribe to the channel. That's the best way to keep going on these adventures with me. It is a quiet Monday, and I want to get you as many empty shots as possible because that's when Disneyland truly holds its magic. So Disneyland, like all great pieces of art, was designed to use its weaknesses as one of its biggest strengths. But the scale of Disneyland often is equated with its charm and creating an environment that feels like a timeless classic. But it's also very, very boxed in, very tiny, and doesn't offer as much diversity as its bigger counterpart, Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. So its strength of feeling small and cuddly and cute is also its weakness when we look at something like drones making their way to Disneyland. So when we think about a drone show coming to Disneyland proper, there are two requirements that we need to be able to identify. And these are going to be very hard to find in the classic footprint. One, drones require a launching station. And this launching station has to be absolutely free from any guest. So you're looking for a large parcel of land where the drones can literally be laid out each evening and then go up and go out to do their show. So this launching area needs to also be connected to the second thing that it requires, an open performance space that is also not above any guests. And then whatever space that is in between launch and stage, that path also needs to be completely clear from guests. So essentially, you have to create an area where they can load, go up, go out, perform, and come back completely guest-free. It's very different than the requirements that fireworks need, because fireworks only really need one zone where they go up and then a circumference around that is guest-free. That's it, just one spot. So they can easily give up the castle as well as the space behind Toontown, because for a short period every night, they just shut down 2 zones in Disneyland. But you would think with the added expense of drones and the added technology, they would probably want to keep as much of the park as operational as possible so they could see actual financial growth from doing a new nighttime show. So for a second, let's think like a corporation. Fireworks cost money every single night, but they only require a little bit of downtime. On the other side, drones don't really require that much money at all every night. Once you buy the fleet, it's just about maintenance. However, if that was offset by having to close up more of Disneyland for longer, now we got a problem. So if Disneyland was willing to continue to shut down Toontown, then we maybe have our first potential candidate that could make this happen. And I also want to point out that Minnie and my man Mickey, where's it at? Already have their Christmas trees out. Modeled after the old ceramic Christmas trees with the bulbs at the end of the branches. One of my favorite nostalgic Christmas decoration.
He watches you.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, man. Have fun today. So, if they were willing to continue to shut down Toontown, really no loss, right? This is something that's already happening. This is where it could get interesting, is that, are people willing to trade drones for fireworks? Because you couldn't do both, and it would definitely mean one or the other, unless they do a little stepping stone of Disney storytelling. Leave the castle for fireworks up front near people in the hub, use Toontown as the backspace for the drone show. That could work in unison. And technically, thinking like a corporation, they would be up on money, although I do think they would love to be able to keep Toontown open, to keep more attractions circulating, more lightning lanes going, and as well as more people spending money. But there could be a very unusual casualty to Toontown.
Hey friends, don't be a casualty to a needlessly complicated healthcare system.
Today's video is sponsored by ZocDoc. Earlier this year, while I was out skateboarding and vlogging, I ripped my calf muscle. The whole injury ended up being a wake-up call. I can't just wing it with my health anymore. I needed to take it seriously, I need to have a plan, And I needed something that could actually help me navigate this overwhelming system instead of wasting weeks waiting for specialist appointments and MRIs. And honestly, in that mess of trying to figure it all out, that's when I found today's sponsor, ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free website where you can easily search and compare high-quality in-network doctors so you can find the right doctor for you instead of guessing who's available or sitting on hold making phone calls. Just type in what you need, your insurance, and it instantly shows you doctors nearby who fit your search. You can read verified patient reviews, see detailed doctor profiles, and get a real sense of the provider before you even walk into the office. It's literally like shopping from a menu. And the best part, you see their actual appointment openings and book instantly. No phone calls, no waiting around. ZocDoc appointments typically happen fast, usually within 24 to 72 hours, and sometimes same day. And it's not just for one type of care. There are more than 100,000 providers across almost every specialty: mental health, dental, eye care, skin care, you name it. I found a specialist for my leg, I had an appointment that week, and I knew exactly what I needed to do for my injury. It really is a one-stop shop for your healthcare, and again, it's completely free. So if you've been putting off your own checkups or you just want to make taking care of your health easier, be kind to yourself, go to ZocDoc.com/Brickey. It's also linked in the description, and instantly book a top-rated in-network doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Brickey. Thanks again for sponsoring today's episode and helping me make sure I can walk to film the next one. There's something that makes Toontown very, very special architecturally. Each of the homes and the facades over next to Roger Rabbit, they're not actual real buildings. I mean, they are real buildings, obviously we've been in them, but they're not built like real buildings. There's a real building hidden in each one of these, but the exterior, the exoskeleton, is actually a sculpture surrounding a traditional building. You see, they brought in a team from Paris that sculpted the exterior of all of these buildings to give them that beveled edge, to give them that cartoon feeling. That's why the outer surface of all these buildings is basically like resin, which is a sculpting material, not a construction material. So if for some reason the drones were to go down and take out one of these houses around here or do significant damage, it's not an easy fix. Why when they redid Toontown, they didn't touch any of these buildings. They can repaint them, they can patch them, you know, just kind of a worst case scenario. Do we really want to get into flying out a special team and resculpting Goofy's house? Disney does have teams that are doing just what I'm doing right now and looking at the risk. We know the reward is a drone show. We know the reward is saving money on fireworks, but what is the risk? And there definitely is a risk to damaging a land that's not easily replaceable or repairable. Slightly operational, risky, and a little bit financially counterproductive, but not too far off on the nightly sacrifice for what they have to give up to do the nighttime show. There's always going to be a little bit of a trade, except for the perfect location, which we'll get to in a minute. As Disney fans, we have been trained that there is one location that reigns supreme when it comes to nighttime shows. And that is the beloved icon in the park, designed and paid for by none other than Walt Disney himself. But let's break down the realistic nature of drones flying over Walt's castle. The only way that I could logistically, realistically figure this out is they would have to launch somewhere behind It's a Small World. And then the fleet would fly over all of Fantasyland and be able to do the show above Sleeping Beauty Castle. But did you just hear what I said? Small World, all of Fantasyland. This would greatly impact the amount of attractions that would have to get shut down for a nighttime show. Currently, the courtyard of Fantasyland shuts down for about a half an hour every night, meaning from King Arthur's Carousel up to the castle, Toad, Peter Pan, Snow White, and Pinocchio all have to close. 5 attractions. But if we were to come in with drones from behind Small World, we'd have to add Small World to that, Casey Jr., Storybook Land canal boats, as well as Alice's Dark Ride, Alice's Teacups for safe measure. All of Fantasyland basically knocked out, which then also would cut off any entry to all of Toontown. But this would basically sever the whole northern edge of the park. But there is one creative workaround. Let me walk you over to this spot and give you another wild idea while we're documenting some wild ideas, which is essentially what retrofitting Disneyland for a drone show is. So I think you're quickly starting to figure out what I'm saying here is Disneyland's historic layout just isn't equipped for this type of modern technology. It's always amazing to me the amount of things they've been able to retrofit in, but sometimes that is definitely going to find its restrictions. Like some things just won't fit. That's part of its charm. So one of the only spots that I could get to fit was the idea of using the Fantasyland Theater as a launch site. However, this would keep more of Fantasyland open, but it would also sacrifice using this space because currently the way that the canopy is on top of the theater, there's no way you can launch drones from here. So this would have to be cleared out and either be just a launch station or rebuilt with a building that has a roof that would basically be like a helipad for drones. Therefore, when the drones fly out, Casey Jr., Storybook Land still go down, as well as Pinocchio, and you know what? If they're gonna go over the castle, all of Fantasyland has to go out. So yeah, maybe this plan saves, I don't know, the teacups? See how tight it is? Like every time you think you figured something out, you run into another obstacle, which is the beauty of this place. So what about the next door neighbor, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge? Would be absolute perfect, but there's a lot of big buts. And you know I love big buts. So the best way to make your spaceport feel real is to obviously have something flying in the sky. So many guests have wanted drones to appear over the spires of Batuu for quite some time now. And it would look fantastic to see a nighttime show happening right up here. And logistically, we have exactly what we need. Backspace where there's no guests, behind the spires of Batuu. The show happens in a completely guest-free environment. So logistically, we're right where we wanted to be. But there is a huge catch. A drone show in Batuu would need to show only Star Wars icons and iconography because you don't want the genie popping up here, Mickey Mouse, or any other stories. It would instantly feel like a disconnect. So remember when we said drones would technically be possible over Toontown? They would spill into this land and that show would ruin the magic of Star Wars at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Batuu's storytelling is sacred. So anything that would be up here would instantly ruin the immersion. So if something were to happen in Toontown, now you have Disney stories being told inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Yeah, that's just not gonna work. This is an instance where fireworks are better than drones because fireworks are abstract. They don't really belong to any part of the park. So if you can see a firework all around Disneyland, it just enhances the magic. And now Batuu finally has its own version of the fireworks show. So there are two shows happening at once, what everybody else is seeing and what people in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge are seeing. Drones would instantly ruin that balance of storytelling because whatever everybody else would be seeing would not fit inside of here. Therefore, making drones in Toontown technically possible, but I believe an absolute storytelling disaster. And I don't know about you, but I, for one, I love these problem-solving exercises with Disneyland. Like, one of the things that made me fall in love with this place as a seasoned designer is that it always has all these different little restrictions, and you have to learn how to work with them and not against them. And then that is where the magic of Disneyland sets in. It's just amazing what they're able to accomplish in such a tight footprint with the city all around its berm. This is me in the pocket. This is what I love. And my promise to you, as my friends at home, I'll never tell you just something because I know that you want to hear it. I'll always give it to you based on real world business restrictions and real world design restrictions. It'll always be based not on what I want, but on what I believe is absolutely possible as a seasoned veteran in the world of design. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I don't do outrage. If I tell you something's not going to happen, I'm probably just as bummed out as you are. But it's all about like looking at this from a way that absolutely makes sense. And that's how we study the past on this channel. to predict the future because it's all done within the logic and patterns that exist. You probably already know that, but I just feel like sharing it sometimes because people get confused that these are my plans, what I want. No, this is called reality, and that's what I do, a reality check with a vibe check. But I do bring this all up and share this with you because I do feel that I have some good news. Because as I've determined, there is one spot inside of all of original Disneyland that could do this, and I believe do it masterfully. It checks all the boxes. So now that I've shown you everything that doesn't work, let me share with you what I believe could work and might actually be what they're working on. And if that's true, hot dog, hot diggity dog. You know where we're going next. You probably do this all along. But what I find is you have to build a case. Kind of tell everybody what's needed, what doesn't work. So when you show people what does work, it feels so much more grounded in reality. I try to make these part design, part theme park, part educational videos. And I do that by building my case. So let's build that case, baby. Because really, we want to see something big happen on the island to make sure that it's preserved in Disneyland's overall design layout. We do not want to have a Magic Kingdom repeat happen out here on the West Coast. Even though I was cool with saying goodbye to Sawyer Island out there, I think it makes sense for that park, but there are a lot of factors in this park that make that no bueno, including the way all the water is routed together. You might want to check out my dark water video if you need to know more about that. That'll make you look at Disneyland and its waterways in an entirely different way. All right, our chariot awaits us. So you may have noticed over the last handful of years, Fantasmic has had a couple of difficulties with some of its show sets. And I'm putting that kindly. If you think about it, it is a very technical show where each night, the rivers of America, the walkways around it, and the island all transforms into a breathtaking amphitheater twice nightly when the show's running. The logistics of that are absolutely insane, but Disney has those logistics mastered. So therefore, Fantasmic and the river, I don't think it's going anywhere. It's one of people's favorite things. It sells deluxe packages, and it also allows Disney to slow down the evening pace, do that transition of shutting down restaurants and shops so that the workers can slowly get everything cleaned up and give you that soft exit out. But they have had some technical difficulties, as I'm sure you've seen, and maybe a more technical version of the show could mean that it could operate more efficiently and last longer. And also give a reason for people to come back to Disneyland, as there's going to be a lot of construction over the next decade. They're going to need to lean on some of their strong points to make sure that the park still operates in a fluent way for thousands of guests every single night. So let's take a walk over on Sawyer Island. Let me kind of lay out how I think this is the one location inside of Disneyland that is absolutely possible to host a nighttime drone show. And fun fact, if you didn't notice, all of the images we've seen them testing all align with the Fantasmic storyline. So now that we've done the math on the two things that we know that we need to do a drone show, this island possesses both of those items. It's a rare guest-free area for the drones to not only launch, but to perform their show. And best part is, nothing has to shut down, no lost revenue. It is perfect in every way for the logistics of what drones need to operate according to state and government laws inside of the US. And I'm sure some drone nerd right now is in the comment, it's not a state law, it's a federal law. Now, an added perk to the drone show being over the island is it would create more of a not full 360 experience, but would definitely open up the sight lines of Fantasmic to go a little bit wider than where the show currently operates. Therefore, giving Disney the availability to book more people, more experiences, and to let where these folks are at over on the edge of Frontierland actually be a part of the show. And then there's this Cascade Peak area right here that could easily be converted into some sort of space that would have prime viewing. But let's break down why it can't be a total 360 show and how that's a good thing. You remember when we were talking about the drones being inside of Toontown and how that would leak into Batuu. Essentially, a drone show is launching up lots of little aircraft, and each aircraft has a pixel or pixels on the front of it. When you align all of those, that's how you draw artwork in the sky. It's basically like breaking apart your computer monitor, putting it on little helicopter blades, and throwing it up in the sky. The reason why this works so well is because if all of the drones were facing from here all the way over to the Haunted Mansion, that means they're not facing towards Batuu. Meaning basically the only land that would get the cold shoulder, I'm gonna regret this. Oh yeah, don't drop the camera. This is when I wish I had like a second camera on me because I must look like a moron. But the only land that would get blocked out would be the one land that doesn't need to see any Disney images or iconography. Do I continue or do I just go back the way I came? I went back the way I came. So facing the show inward basically allows all of the park to see the Disney story up in the sky, except for the one part of the park where it aggressively goes against the storyline. See, it's just a win in every single way. But let's talk about what would need to happen to create this launch site. Currently, the back of the island, where the fort is, this acts as a nighttime dressing room. The cast members take the rafts over to the island, get dressed up, transformed into whom they truly are in their inner Disney hearts. I don't have food for you. And that allows the guests to not see characters crossing over the island, but for a grand finale of one of the most magical Disney moments is when that Mark Twain comes by with all the characters waving at you on the side. Come on, man, that is Disney magic personified. So yes, there would need to be some of the tree canopy cleared out, but maybe there's a way to make something a little bit better at the far end of the island, a multi-use structure. Maybe something that during the day, us guests can use and gives Disney a reason to believe in the island. And in the evening or on a second floor, still is that fitting room, but above it has the drone launch pad, where this is where the drones are kept, where the maintenance happens, and where they're able to fly them up in the sky, go a little bit further out on the island, and perform that nighttime show. If they stay directly on the island, then that wouldn't interfere with what happens on the rivers of America. If they found a designated area where the drones could perform, the performers could still make their way on the riverway and add in that multi-dimension storytelling that is what makes Fantasmic so fantastic. Now, there is one thing that I need to point out before we get this horse way too ahead of the cart. No, I did it backwards again. Before we get this cart way too ahead of the horse. Nailed it that time. There is a little thing that we do in the world of design, which is we create proofs of concept. And one of the strongest advents of like AI technology is it gives creatives a faster way to make mock-ups and mood boards. This is stuff that the public will never see, but it gives us a great way internally to make pitches and campaigns before real dollars are spent. And it gives an efficient way for our corporate overlords to be like, yes, there is a budget for this. Because now that I've seen it, I love it and I have to have it. That's how selling art works. That's why Joe Rohde showed up in a meeting with Eisner with a tiger to be like, yo, you need to build Animal Kingdom. And he's like, just get the tiger out of here and we'll build Animal Kingdom. So there is a strong potential, if I'm giving this to you very realistically, that the reason why all the images we've seen are Fantasmic related is because maybe the idea for an internal pitch was just this. Let's do a drone show. Let's program it to Fantasmic so that we have a score and we can create that Disney storytelling so the corporate executives that need to approve this budget can see it and go, yep, that works, I love it, I want to buy it. And by using a soundtrack that already exists and one that's beloved, it got them halfway there on half the budget. They didn't need to write a new story, create a new score, put all of that together. They just had to do the visuals and could pitch, we're not doing this for Fantasmic, but imagine what this could look like in Paris, China, Magic Kingdom, or even Dubai. So a lot of times as creatives, we will create a pitch using materials that already exist that get us half the way there. And then we just tell who we're presenting to up front, like, hey, this part of the deck is AI, or this part of the deck is Fantasmic. Obviously, we all know that's not going to be what it is, but we use that to deliver this for you faster and more affordably, which now you've already won the execs over because you're speaking their language. So I did want to tell you, just because the images align with Fantasmic, don't fully mean that's what we're getting. But there are a lot of indications that point to, if we're going to get anything at Disneyland that is drone related, that would be the thing that we would get. So I did want to bring you into the R&D, research and development process, just to give you an idea of how that works. If something's not released to the public yet, it is still very much an internal pitch. And internal pitches obviously have a lot of pieces of them that are still very abstract, because we're just trying to figure out what we're building and how we can get it done with a proof of concept that sells the idea. So with a show that has struggled to keep some of its practical and real world effects alive, maybe adding something up in the sky that people could also easily see over at the castle, over on Main Street, maybe that is a move, and we're seeing that move right now as we're celebrating the 70th, which was a little lackluster, making people believe that they're going to go all out for the 75th. 5 years away, this would all align to where they're at now and to where they want to go. That is, if this is indeed for Disneyland. Could this be for international parks or any other parks? And look, I get it. I know most fans want this 3-story chamber behind me to open up and have a huge dragon come out that breathes fire, because practical effects are absolutely practical magic. But thinking like a corporation, they're probably thinking this is a little risque, and how do we do something that's a little bit safer, something that's a little bit more efficient, and something that we know we can rely on time and time again. Because we do know, other than the time that there was the Great Fire, that it was kind of a coin's toss whether you're going to see Murphy come out or not. What's so exciting about drones, though, is they're not just a show, they're a design challenge. And I, for one, started this channel because I fell in love with the design challenges of Disneyland. They call it Imagineering for trademark reasons. I call it creative problem solving. And honestly, all of this was what I thought YouTube was missing, and why I decided to make this channel. And I'm luckily finding folks that want to go on these adventures with me. Nobody knows what the future holds, but by looking at the design art past of Disneyland, we can kind of predict where it's going. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see why I believe Sawyer Island will forever be safe inside of Disneyland, make sure you watch this video right here. Thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you.